because I work with a number of CEOs of small and large companies, especially with Vistage International and Vistage in New York, helping them grow their business. So I think this topic, for most of you who want to have greater business and work with the right kinds of clients as you do it, is very appropriate. So again, let me welcome you now to Effective Rainmaking to Grow Your Business, and let us begin. What I'd like to do is just focus with you on what our agenda is. Our agenda is very simple. We're going to really make a differentiation for many people between networking, connecting, and rainmaking. Many people confuse the three, and that's part of the problem. Understanding the difference will help you become more effective at effective rainmaking. We'll then go through some of the common challenges that everyone meets as they try to move into rainmaking, and then to work into some of the best practices. What do we recommend you do as a next step to be able to go forward and do a better job? So let's first define what is networking. The networking, in a sense, we've all heard of, and we all know we've done it in different ways. It's going to an event, and it's meeting a lot of people who share some kind of interest. Maybe they've been at the same trade show, maybe they're in your professional group, etc. And what we're doing is introducing ourselves. And for many people, the criteria used to be giving out cards to everybody you know. That's how people would measure it. They're measuring by the quantity of people you meet or the cards received. Unfortunately, that's not an effective way to grow your business. It isn't about the cards. But what's more important to understand is why, for so many people, networking actually fails. And the reason it fails is because of these 6 reasons we see most commonly. People join an organization, but they don't bother showing up at the event. Or you show up, but you don't interact. You come with a friend and you spend the entire evening or morning or whatever it is with your colleague or your friend. Or there's a networking event in front of a seminar where you can learn and listen to a lot of different people and exchange ideas, but you skip the networking just to be able to arrive for the meal or the presentation. You go and you're open-minded to meeting with other people, you run into people you know, and next thing you find out is you've spent the entire day mingling with the people you already know. The most important part about it is if you've used your strategy of how do I meet the right kind of people to do things, and you know you want to spend your time with the right people, you really have to understand your strategy, which is what are you willing to get and what do you want to give. And you're going to have to give before you get. And that's a real issue for many people. And what you need to do is ask the question, how do I do that? What do I do well? And so what people do is they just show up, and therefore giving out cards is the path of least resistance, and that's what they're going to focus in on. And so they do that thinking that's networking, only to find out, wow, I brought back 1,000 cards, and then they may not even follow up on any of them. And if they do a poor job. So networking alone isn't adequate. So let's take us to the next level. What's connecting? Connecting is a step above it. It means meeting someone at one of these events, but creating a mental and or emotional association with someone to build the relationship. And that relationship that you have is built on rapport. It's built on trust. So it's not just giving a card to someone and saying, wow, you've got a hand that knows how to hold my card. It's taking it to that actual next level and being able to say, I understand a little about you, where you're from, what it's about. Let me tell you where I'm from, and let's see if we can't build trust to build a connected relationship. So it involves give and take. And notice what comes first, give, not take. We learned in the theory of reciprocity, you have to give to receive. And finally, it's built around the concept of a mutual win-win. Everybody benefits if you do this thing right. And so what you want to do is you want to nurture it by a good intention of giving and then hopefully earning respect and trust and getting. And so essentially connecting is about the value that you develop with someone over time. Or to put it simply put, networking is about the transaction. Connecting is about the relationship. But there are also common connecting mistakes that we see all the time. Again, you come with the opportunity to connect, not just network, but you have no strategy of what you want to give on what you want to get. You don't have a sense of who your brand is. You don't have a sense of what value you have for this audience that you can give them. You haven't researched any of the people who are likely to be there. And very often we have a list of some of the people. Maybe it's speakers, maybe it's organizations people represent, and they happen to be the head of, let's assume, the CIO in a particular company, and you could be dealing with it. What you do is you just deal with niceties, and you have what we call non-conversations. So instead of focusing on how they want to become better at what they do and grow their own business and how you might be able to help out with that, what you're doing is you're talking about the weather and sports and who won the boxing match on the weekend, etc. Or even worse, you talk only about yourself. People don't want to hear everything about you, what you did when you were in third grade. It's irrelevant. And then what you do is when you decide, well, I want to try to connect, you connect not by offering an idea that might be valuable, the giving. What you do is you start making a request. And finally, going back to what we talked about with networking, you get the cards, and what do you do with them? You've made a connection, and you still have no follow-up strategy. Very important. What's my strategy to follow up? How do I show the kind of integrity that the person wants to deal with, that I'm the kind of person that's going to work with them and build a relationship? So rainmaking takes us to the next level. And what is rainmaking? Rainmaking is meeting the qualified prospect. So you've already made a decision where you're going to meet these people by meeting people who are qualified. Now, qualified doesn't mean they're necessarily going to be clients. They could be people who can connect you to clients. They're people who could be centers of influence, people who have a hub of other people that you could work with, and it will spread the word about you to qualified prospects. So it's both meeting directly with people who could use your services and relate to you, and it's working with people who can relate to you because they're in the business of really trying to share great resources with other people. So ultimately, rainmaking is something that traditionally used to be called referral marketing. It's focusing on getting people to understand who you are so they can share that information to their benefit with other people. And so for you, finding centers of influence may be the most important thing. I run a trusted advisor group with Vistage, and we have a number of people running businesses that can be very small, a couple $100,000 to several million, and most of the people are in there because they want to grow their business. And very often we'll start a new season by focusing on who are the most common centers of influence, COIs as we call them often, who could be people who could refer you to other people because they have a natural grouping that they work with. They love giving to those people because they know by giving it all comes around. And so you want to work with that kind of thing. So why should you be a rainmaker? A couple of reasons. We now know from the math of looking at different ways of reaching clients, the most cost-effective way to bring in the business is to be able to get a referral. And so just to put a number on it, the math often says one referral is greater than 20 cold calls. And in today's day and age, I think it's even higher because depending on how high you're trying to reach someone in an organization, getting to the veto, the very important top officer, the CEO, for example, of a company, can take hundreds of cold calls to get through for lots of reasons, which we won't go into right now. What's important is to understand that why does that referral make a big difference? Because when you're referred to someone, just think of the people that you've used that got referred to you because you know the source who made it and you believe that person to have integrity and be respectful and be credible. You're going to say, okay, you had a dentist and you said the person was terrific, didn't make you wait, painless dentistry, took your insurance without a problem, and you really felt very good about it, and you love the staff in there. You know what? Give me that person's number. I'm going to call that dentist as well. So what happens is people tend to buy more quickly. They're less likely to negotiate because they're willing to take people at their face value because key part is they know there's value. They don't have to do it. When they're ready to buy, instead of the small nibble, they'll buy a larger quantity. wanted. In the old days, I was in the relations business, and I was working with companies who were buying stocks and wanted to encourage people to buy stocks. And many of the people in the stockbroker business would say very often to potential clients, "Why don't you buy just a little, see how it works, see how you like us, and if it's good, you move on." It's called a nibble. But if someone said, "I've been working with this person for years, is getting me a 20.2% return rate, even in this crazy economy for the last 5 years," you're going to be willing to take a lot more than just a nibble. And finally, that person's also going to make more referrals because now you feel very comfortable about them. And then you can say, you know something, I got this person through referrals, and therefore what I want to do is pass it on. In sum, rainmaking means educating a person about the value proposition of yourself and enabling others to communicate your brand. So it's a combination of educating them and enabling them, and that's what we're going to focus in on, both parts of the equation. So let's first understand what are the common challenges. Recently, I worked with someone at Markham in business development, and we were talking about some of the common challenges we hear all the time from people who say, I don't do any networking. I don't really connect very well, and I'd love to be a rainmaker, but I just don't know what to do. And their single biggest excuse is, I don't have time. I run a business. It's a small business. I have to actually be in charge of marketing, sales, and operations and human resources, and I supervise the financial person. I don't have time to go out to events to meet people. However, what that person ignored in that equation was that one very important part of their job was sales and marketing. And so if you don't do that, you're not doing your job. I want to stress something interesting. There's a great book out there, which is why we put some of the books on the slides to help you. Keith Ferrazzi wrote a book called Never Eat Alone. He's written another one since then. But his whole point is most people do have lunch. And if they're going to have lunch, it's a great time to meet somebody. So suddenly you can make the time. And so if you never eat alone and you met one person or you interacted with one person every day that you had lunch and you only work a 5-day week, just think about that. 250 times you'd be able to meet someone that you didn't have time before to meet. And as we all know, in today's day and age, most people don't work 8-hour days. We're working much longer days. We're blending our work and our social lives and family lives together. So we're working at different times. And so it could be breakfast, it could be coffee, it could be dinner, it could be anything. The second part is many people will say to me, well, I'm an introvert. I don't feel comfortable in social settings. And that's a real issue. But what we're discovering is introverts who learn the tools of effective rainmaking can be just as successful as the extrovert, because it isn't about how many people you encounter and how many cards you give out. It really is about connecting on the level of relationships. It's really an important part of doing it that way. And therefore, the result is, as Nike would say, if you want to do it, just do it. Just jump out. I want to share something with you. Most people that you're going to run into, at least 50% are actually going to be introverts. It's just the way of life. And so if you're an introvert, they'll spot it, first of all, and they'll give you a little extra breathing space because, well, they're an introvert, or they sure as heck know other introverts. So the result is just do it. Just get out there and do it. And again, that's where the preparation's important, and we'll talk about that at the end. It's about deliberately practicing your script, because remember, what you need to do is educate people to your value proposition and then motivate them to want to keep you top of mind, because every time they help someone use your service, they have done a value to the person they made the referral. And that's the mental setting. It's not about you, it's about them helping their people. One of the other comments that I get very often when we do the training on this and go through concrete actual strategies and tactics that different people in different companies can use is people going around saying, well, I don't really have any network. And the reality of the situation is we all have networks, and we have multiple networks. We just don't think about it that way. So I love this kind of picture because it shows you this concept of different spheres within a sphere in terms of just the areas in which you can reach people. We have a network of people we work with. We may also have a professional network, people who are in our professional groups. So if you're a CPA and you're trying to get people to work with you, that's a different group of people than your client group and your staff that you're working with. Most of us have some kind of relationship with strategic partners and vendors. Maybe it's, if you're a normal business, you probably have some kind of service that's dealing with HR, maybe with insurance, maybe with leasing of equipment, maybe with accounting and legal services. All of these are strategic partners. And those people also know it. And just keep in mind, all of your vendors know you very well from only one dimension, and that is the service they provide you. So if I'm focusing on providing you with a great healthcare plan, I know all about your company and your people's needs for healthcare services and your budget and everything like that. But what else do I know about your company? Do I really understand what business you're in? Do I understand who your customers are? Do I understand how you're expanding to grow and how many different offices you might have? All of those kinds of issues I may not know because I haven't taken the time to do it. Similarly, community. We all live in our communities. How many people in your community really know what you are? I tend to live in houses, but I often run into people who live in apartments, and we have this conversation. I said, on your floor, about how many people are there, and how many of them are you really friendly with and know what you're doing? And the numbers are completely opposite. And then I said, then you have 20 other floors, and how many of them do you know? So there's a community in an apartment building, and nobody knows who anybody is. If you're a person who's a professional, then you're probably focusing on developing expertise and you're focusing on ways of growing and you want to learn from these people. That is your innovative expert community. So it might be people you went to school with, who you share ideas with, or it might be where you go for special classes or something like that. And similarly, when you're thinking of going out and expanding your business from a career point of view, maybe getting a new job. Yesterday I interviewed somebody who's moving into a new job. It's an example, gets referred through somebody else that I happen to know, referred the person to me. Okay, it's a career, it's a learning network. And these are just some. There are many other networks that we're involved with, sports networks, etc. The point is, take a good look at all your networks and ask the question, how well am I working my network? So the best practices that we're going to recommend you use for all of these people, and we're going to go through this in some greater detail, are these 6 key points. One is you need to adopt the mindset of an effective referral marketer. And we're going to talk about in a minute what is that mindset. Once you have that mindset, your number one job is to articulate your brand. If you can't articulate exactly what your brand is so that somebody else can repeat it, doesn't matter. That's the key to the whole thing. It isn't that you can say it, it's that you can give it to somebody else so that they can repeat it to all the people they know. Then what you want to be able to do is very clearly identify your target prospects, which are the people that you would love to serve. We all have clients that we really do not want to serve. They may not be the kind of people we want. They may not generate the kind of revenues for your company that you'd like it to do, all kinds of issues. So they're not target. In fact, at our Trusted Advisor Group, we go through a 45-minute presentation by the host each time, and it's one of the big issues. Tell us who's an ideal client. What do they look like? What do they feel like? Let's picture them. And what are some of the clients you really don't want? So we don't waste your time on the wrong kind of people when we make connections for you. And the second part, who are the ideal connectors? Who are the kind of people who are very likely to be able to make the connection? So, for example, there's an organization, the Association for Corporate Growth, brings in a lot of middle market people who can relate to lawyers, accountants, investment bankers, companies that buy and sell companies. These people, depending where they are, have lots of other connections in their network that they can use and that they can make connections to you with. So you need to know who are the best connectors that you have. The fourth part of that is then you have to have a strategy for how to connect them. Where do you go? What you do? We're going to go through that. Then once you've done that and you've provided a service to somebody, and we'll talk about the mindset, but the mindset's one of earning the referral. So if you've done that job, then how do you ask for it? And the asking comes starting with, how do you earn the credit so people will make the referral. And finally, how do you close? How do you actually close this thing of getting those referrals? In this case, so you can be an effective rainmaker. So let's go through those 6 elements right now. And then what we want to do is focus on adopting the mindset. So I started this before, and I want to spend some time on this because it's the most important thing. You have to earn the right to receive referrals. You can't just walk up to somebody that you provided an inferior service to, that you've overcharged for, that took 15 times as long to get serviced, and expect that person, when you say, by the way, do you know anyone who could use my service, to say, oh yeah, I know someone and I'll make a positive referral. So one of the key things to understand is your level and your company's level of customer service is absolutely essential to referral marketing and rainmaking. So let's take a simple example. We've all heard about the wonderful culture that Zappos has created. It's a fun culture for the workers. It's one where they know they're helping people, where there are almost no limits to helping people. Very flat organization right now. They've gotten rid of all the titles. And they reached a stage right now, which they started with, and it's gotten bigger, where they actually bring in people, train them for 2 weeks, and at the end of the 2 weeks, offer them several $1,000s not to join the company. Because if money is more important than the quality of working in that company, they don't want them. It's cheaper to get rid of them then than it is to wait 6 months to find out they've been a disaster for some clients and making the place a terrible place for other people to work. So what you need to do is ask this kind of question all the time, and that is, am I creating a culture where everyone in my company exudes the kind of energy, the kind of value proposition of caring, trust, integrity, thinking out of the box, whatever it is that's critical to your service or product, so that your company has constantly earned the credit of saying, wow, I want to refer you to that place. It's just incredible. Second, you need to understand that the asking, as we'll get to it later on, excuse me, my throat's going, the asking comes from first giving. You have to give before you receive. It really is the law of reciprocity. And that means you need to really appreciate what the other person needs. Because how can you refer someone to somebody if they don't appreciate what it is they're doing in their value? So I know I teach business strategy and entrepreneurship and marketing, so I do a lot of things at the universities here and in China, but it's always asking questions. Tell me what you do, how you do it, what makes you different than everybody else. Why would someone choose you over someone else? And so obviously part of my connecting group is one where we're constantly pushing the envelope, trying to get a little better at everything we do to be really differentiated. And for those of you who attended our previous session on commanding strategies for sustainable competitive advantage, you know what I'm talking about. The third part is to increase the pie so everyone gets more. Okay, and that's a real important part. Last week we did a topic on negotiation, and we talked about how important it is not to think, how do I take the pie and cut it, but how do I maybe increase the pie so that everybody actually gets more. And the more I do that, the easier it is for us to reach a conclusion, to negotiate with a positive reference, and to make great referrals about it. So the lesson that very often comes out of it is that actually who you know and who he or she knows is even more important than what you know. For me, when I got involved with this many, many years ago, that was kind of the big breakthrough, because I grew up as a child learning it's what you know that counts. But we live today in a world of Google where you don't have to know it. You just have to know how to ask the right questions so that you can find it. And it's similar to the same thing. You have to know the right people who will know the right people to refer you to. And they have to be anxious to be able to help you because they realize it's in their best interest, in their client's best interest. And that's what it's all about, working with prime interests. You have to have a mindset that always says, it's not that I want references. Oh, I can give you 30 references of people who used us, and I'm going to give you the people who like me because I know them the best. It's about referrals. That's the criteria. Are they fans? Are they enthusiasts? Will they go around and think about you when the time is right? And just remember, you might have a chiropractor, and, 4 years ago, a person put you out of misery in no time at all, made you feel good, you're able to go back to work, and you feel great about the person. But every day you walk down the street, you're not going to meet someone saying, hi, I have this great chiropractor. People don't think that way. Okay, it has to be that you're top of mind within the category. Hence, the educating people to think about that in the category. So, someone says, "Oh, my back is killing me. I don't know what to do." That might trigger it. And finally, keep two things in mind. You always have to have an open mind and a grateful heart. If you're not open minded, you're going to miss out on opportunities. And it is about that connection. That's why I start going from networking to connecting to rainmaking. It's really about being grateful to people and sharing that gratefulness that's going to make the difference between getting the referral or not. The second part is to clarify your brand value. You really need to answer this. This you have to do before you show up. Who are you? Personally, professionally, as a community member? What causes are you involved with? What do you stand for? I've given you two pictures of two great leaders, Steve Jobs and Oprah Winfrey, both of whom represent many wonderful attributes in our society. I don't have to repeat them all. We know them. The point is, because we know who these people are. When you get referred, there needs to be some kind of identity that people get. Most of the people who refer me very often say, "Jerry, he'll do just about anything he can to make sure you get what you need." And that's what I do as a person, as a coach, as a consultant, whatever the case may be. I had one gigantic client once who I helped put together a conference on innovation, and worked with a number of people and wearing lots of different hats: sales, marketing, strategy, training, presentations, whatever. And what the president needed to introduce me to somebody, and he was with some of the people, and he starts, "This is Dr. Khan. And he's looking at everyone. How do I describe him?" And he finally says, "He's our trusted advisor. Whenever we need something, he somehow figures out how to get us what we need." And that's what it's about. So you need to have an identity and people that you know, that you feel comfortable with, that people can, on their own, merit saying, "This is who you are." What do you specialize in? Because again, you have to be specializing in something. I specialize in business development, strategy, leadership. Those are the things I specialize in. How do you differ from your competitors? What makes you unique? What makes you different? Think about Steve Jobs, early computers, but he's into design as opposed to becoming a software guru. Okay, he made a decision where it is, so he differentiates himself, and he provides that value. He's hard on people because he's forcing people to dig into themselves to find out what's the best that I can offer, and that's part of what he is. So you need to really understand your value. And so these are some common examples. Are you more convenient? Are you offering greater depth or breadth? Very rarely both, but it could be, of expertise. Are you saving time? Are you saving money? Are you there for emotional support? I just got an email today from one of my clients. "I'm really having a really lousy day. Can you spare 5 minutes so we can just talk?" And set up an appointment to do that. It's being there that's a critical support part. What are you known for? So you have to think that through, figure out what it is, and this is not stuff you do in 2 seconds, and then create from there what might be called a 30-second commercial. We've all heard about the elevator pitch, your 30-second commercial about you. And then my recommendations, you bring it down to 15 seconds. And actually, if you're really good at it, you bring it down to another 7.5 seconds, so that depending on how fast you've got someone at a meeting or at an event, you can really get it down quickly to what it is that's core about you, so they will remember your brand. Next, you want to make sure not just that you know it, but that other people know it. This is really the hard part for most people when they're putting together what they're doing. They're not answering the key question: how do they communicate that information to other people? So what you need to do is figure out how to use common language, not jargon, that other people can adapt, and use it from a perspective of a brand that you represent as a thought leader in that area, in that industry, and as an expert. And so the way you can do that is providing an easy language for them to use, but the other part is just being there as a resource, because part of it then is that same Google concept where they know you can just turn to Jerry and he's a trusted advisor. He'll provide you with whatever solution you have, whether it's strategy, leadership, new business development, whatever the case may be. So you want to become a resource. And that's a great way to communicate all the things you have through one specific focus. So you might decide, I am a mentor, an advisor. Or you might say, you know what I'm really good at is spreading the word. I'm a publicist. I'm an advocate for people. Or maybe what you're really great at is finding great people. My CEOs very often turn to me and say, listen, I need someone to really look at this person. We're trying to fill a job slot, and I need someone to interview this person who knows what we're doing and why we're doing, but won't necessarily work with them all day, so they're a little more objective and really sees it from outside the box. And from there, I will come in and do that kind of job for them. In fact, we had someone yesterday and got disqualified in some ways from what he was doing because it was inappropriate for this particular context, and nobody picked up on that. You might be a revenue enhancer, a purchasing agent. There's different roles we play in what we're doing. So, for example, I'm working right now with two young people who are writing a book on millennials. They finished a draft. It's really good. And I'm trying to find now agents and publishers for them to send copies to see if they can get a contract. It's actually something which how millennials will vote in the next election. So it's really timely. So, again, I'm in a position where I'm looking for someone who can make that kind of referral. What you want to do is you explain what you do. Is not make blanket statements, but use social proof, which means testimonials, which means examples of what you've done, because you need to validate your value and communicate it. And so getting out and presenting, for example, might be one way to demonstrate your expertise. What you need to do is use concrete examples, not just claims, that are going to make the difference so people understand that you really are what you say you are and your validity is there. And again, if you use it in common language so people can tell the story and remember it, oh, I heard what he did. An example, I'm working with a real estate firm right now, and I mentioned to them I recently worked with someone else, and this company had this really phenomenal concept of how to package real estate and had a 316% ROI on this property in 6 months. And I've never forgotten that statistic because it's just so astronomical. And I went through it. Why? It's clearly an undervalued thing. They'd figured out how to value it. And it was that figuring it out. That's what I say they specialize in. So you have to find a way of phrasing it so that people can repeat it easily for you in 15 to 30 seconds. Number 3, you have to identify who your target prospects are. I meet with lots of people who run companies and are business development, and they basically say, well, I want anybody who's got, hot blood in them and is going to be alive, and they pass the breathing test if I put a mirror in front of their mouth. That's not how you're going to grow your business. Remember, 20% of your clients will generally produce 80% of your revenue. So you really need to think through, who is my ideal prospect? It might be someone who buys more regularly, has fewer problems, provides more referrals, whatever the case may be. You need to know what is that ideal prospect, and that means sitting down and defining that up front. And that means also understanding exactly why they need your services. Because sometimes the reason they need it, and that's why they're really reliable and great customers, is different than why other people are using your services. So in many ways, think about it. If I know exactly what shoes I want, I could go to any shoe company and say, that's the shoe I want. I picked it out. I want it. Send it to me. But if I'm not 100% sure, then I might use a company like Zappos, which says, we'll send you 27 shoes and you take whichever one or two that you like and return the rest, and it doesn't cost you anything. Again, I understand, but the customer who's coming there may not have pre-decided it and therefore needs that extra service, which they're paying a little bit extra for. So you have to define, what am I looking for in this person? Another example, I work with wealth managers, many of them. And I have one wealth manager who started off with $1 million plus accounts. And over the period of years, we've gone from 1 million to 2.5 million minimum to 5 million minimum, 10 million minimum. Obviously, he spends more and more time per client, but he has a lot less clients that he has to master. And that makes him very effective at what he does. And the second part of that whole part is to not just identify the client, but who is your ideal connector. Who is it that you know that loves being out there, talks to everybody, gets involved with everything that you're doing, and can be able to share the value you offer to their people, because it's going to make their people benefit and it's going to make them benefit. So it might be a C-suite officer. It might be a veto, a very important top officer. It could be an opinion leader. There's people who people turn to when they have questions, or who, because of who they are, like to lead with opinions and influences. We call it now influencers. who like to influence other people by sharing their insights, their expertise, and their preferences to with other people. Generally, they're well networked, so you can really know it because you say this person's really out there, knows lots of different people in different places. They're also very credible and articulate. If they're not, then why they have a large network might be something completely different, and you need to understand that. They are people who are influential with your ideal prospect. That's the number one criteria you're looking for here, because you might find a great connector who just doesn't connect to the right kind of people and influence the kind of people you're trying to do. It's very often a person, by the way, who appreciates the concept of a favor bank. I'm glad to help you out. And someday, if I need you to help me help somebody else out, I'll let you know. And for them, it's not a tit for tat. It's just a kind of a bank where we all help each other. And what's great is there's great interest that accrues if you're helping the bank grow like that. And so they're willing and able to exchange referrals. The phrasing you might listen for is, "I'll do anything for you." And that's the kind of person you're looking for in a connector. The fourth part is you want to use the best connecting strategies. So here's my point here, is that connecting and then becoming an effective rainmaker is about strategy. You really have to have a strategy. So why would people come to you? Well, one answer is you need to stand out. How do you do that? What you might decide is, I'm not just going to go to a conference on cloud computing. I'm going to actually be a speaker at the conference. Why? Because then everyone sees me. That's great. More visibility. Everyone can hear my expertise. That's more visibility. It also adds credibility. It also allows you to focus in on those people you can spot in the audience who are more interested in your topic rather than less interested in your topic. So what you want to do is find those connectors by taking an active role in the places where they are. You want to attend the events that attract connectors. So you need to think through, where are the kind of people that I'm looking for are likely to show up and be able to produce it. You want to create maybe a board of advisors, a group of people who you work with, who share with you expertise that they have, but their expertise also comes from other people that they're working with. It's a very important part of your board of advisors. It's one of the wonders, excuse me, of Vistage, is that of the 19,000 members, they're all in small groups of anywhere between 10 and 16 people. And what they do is they form within that group trust relationships. And as a result of that, each of them is kind of a member of their board of advisors. And it's amazing to see how they help each other and give and take each other and make great referrals for each other, etc. You can also do it in more business-like terms. For example, offering a no-risk service or a product. So you offer a referral. You offer a white paper. You offer something that can help. I run into a number of people that are interested in some of the programs I work with, and whenever possible, we'll offer a no-risk first time come and sit in a session and learn it. For example, if CEOs are interested in our program, we have every month a CEO introductory breakfast where people get to meet other CEOs and learn something real important. For example, in this case, we have a hedge fund manager at UBS who's going to be speaking, so we'll learn something and get to know more about it. So there are ways of connecting at a positive value where you're constantly giving. You want to go where other people don't go. So you want to think of different places. So not just meeting people in business, but people who are on nonprofit boards are also connectors, and very often very effective connectors. And the one lesson I want to leave everybody with is that none of this is easy. It's not a 2-second operation. You snap your fingers and bingo, it's going to happen. You have to persevere. It takes time. I just finished reading something, let's see if I can remember what it was, about somebody who closed a phenomenal deal, and it took him 2 years to reach the person that he wanted to meet. If I remember who it is, I'll let you know. I can't remember right now, but I remember it striking. My God, he spent 2 years. I know someone who built this whole company around trying to meet somebody who was running a public company and came from the same town that he'd come from, and he thought that would help. And I know his rule was he called every Friday morning at 9:30, had a phenomenal relationship at that point with the CEO's executive assistant, because she would call and say, so is he available? No, he is not. Why don't you try him again next week? And he did this for 9 months until one day she says, you're really lucky. He just closed the deal. He's got nothing on his plate. Why don't you come on in right now? By 11 o'clock, he was there. They struck a friendship, and eventually this gentleman invested in his business. Again, it's all about giving. You need to then create your own opportunities. In other words, sometimes they're there, but sometimes you need to create your own opportunities. And what's wonderful is it's really a lot of fun to do that. So, for example, I have a number of wealth managers who like golf, and they know other people like golf. And what they'll say is, I'm going to bring out 4 people who are my clients and say to them, how would you like a free day of golf? But you have to bring with you a colleague, I don't know, who's going to be able to share information with other people so we can have a really great set of 8 people who are all playing golf together and learn from one another. And so they'll bring lawyers and other business people and accountants and whatever. And the net result is relationships are built. So you can create your own private sporting event. You can provide tickets to other events, seminars. I have a person, she runs seminars. She brings in 20 people on average to each seminar with the goal of getting 3 leads from it. And it's a free dinner in a nice restaurant and the whole bit like that. And we've been tracking success, and sure enough, it way pays for itself. The point is, she's creating the event. You can't just go to other people's events. She creates her own events. What you can do is not do it on your own, by the way. You can do it with other people. Find non-competitors that you can work with. So when I do my CEO breakfast, for example, I will reach out to other people, wealth managers, CPAs, lawyers, whoever it is that wants to help me be a sponsor, and they get a chance to introduce their service to this audience as well. So it's, again, a win-win situation. Everybody benefits. The trick is to do that. And what you want to do maybe is just join together in hosting events at that point. And they're my host, and they get a lot of publicity because, as many of you know from the marketing material we do, we always try to give visibility to our hosts to thank them for what they've done. Now, what you want to do is you want to use all available media. Today, there's so much wonderful general social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Google Plus, etc. But I want to replace the point. I want to make the point that nothing really replaces face-to-face connections. That's where the relationship is built, around face-to-face. So you should use the technology to increase it. It's basically to take it to the next level. So you're using it to build your brand over time that you couldn't have communicated in 15, 30 seconds, 1 minute that you got to present yourself. It's allowing you also identify leaders and emerging leaders, because they're people who can promote their brand, and that's a critical element of it. And it also begins the introduction process. So you've met them, and now what you've done is you've opened the doors. Let's meet, let's talk, etc. So I like to think that we have all these media that come from traditional media, social media, and face-to-face media, and what you have to do is use those that make the best sense. Now, ultimately, if you've got the connection, you've got the relationship, they understand your value proposition, it sounds like a great thing, so you should ask people. Now, when I say ask people, what does that mean? Well, people say, well, doesn't that mean, hi, who do you know who can give me a referral? No, that's not what it means. And so when I ask people, do you ever ask, their comment is, well, I can't ask because that's using people, or I'm imposing on someone. And you know something, if they really knew someone, they'd be referring anyhow. So like, I'm just doing it. And if I ask for it, it's obviously going to damage my relationship, because it'll show that I'm only using them for that, even though I've been there as a trusted friend and advisor for the last 20 years. And the ultimate real reason we all know is I'm afraid of rejection. Okay, because we all have that basic fear in the back of our mind. Those are common reasons for not asking, and not one of them is good. If you've earned the right to receive referrals, because you've earned the right, the client will want to help you grow your practice. They want to help you because you've helped them, and they want to help the other people they know. So it comes together. So the asking is not intrusive. Do you have anyone to recommend? Who do you know who can use my service? What it's all about is showing how you can help people. Okay, so the asking is making sure that they have in your head the mind share of what it is you do. If they understand what makes you special, and they understand that helping their friends get them a special deal because they're going to get higher quality, higher service, higher responsiveness, whatever the case may be, that you're going to wow them just like you've wowed this particular connector you had or client that you have. That's the critical part. So the asking is really giving and communicating so that the person understands what you can do, and saying, is there ways I can help other people within your network? In other words, you're offering to give, not to receive. And finally, rainmaking doesn't just mean generating leads. Okay, it's not the cards, it's not just having a list of people you know a little bit about. It means closing those meant for you. It's really finishing it. Can you imagine someone provides a referral? I see this happen so often. People actually provide referrals and people drop the ball. They don't bother following up. They don't provide the service. They don't provide with integrity what they're trying to do. What you need to do is realize you're getting a qualified client that's going to provide, hopefully, some profitability for everybody, and that person can generate additional referrals when they feel great about it. So what you need to do is focus on closing, meeting their needs. And what you want to do is monitor everything you do, your networking events, your connecting events, the close rates with each one in terms of providing them with a service, providing them with a referral, providing them with the lead, helping them out. And the best way to do that ultimately is really polishing your presentation skills, your selling skills, your negotiation and closing skills. Now, we've all learned what we do over a period of time, but it doesn't mean we're proficient at it. And the goal here is for us to become more proficient. So let's put it all together in sum. You can use referral marketing to grow business exponentially. This is not linear. For those of you who understand what an exponential is versus linear, this is an important part. In fact, we're about to introduce, when I get back from China, a new workshop on exponential growth, the kind of stuff behind an Uber, for example. And that's being used by SpaceX and all these other companies that have figured out how to really do it, Airbnb. Because most of us grew up, I know I did, in a linear world. You keep incrementally adding. Now how do you change the game so it becomes exponential? And so you can do that with referral marketing if you really get the mindset to do it. So what you have to do is understand these 6 components. You have to understand what you want. What's your goal? How many people do you want to connect with? What can you offer them? How can you make their lives better? How's that going to make your life better? And then what you have to do is earn the right to the referrals. Do what it takes to do it. Don't drop the ball. You have to articulate your brand value and articulate it in a way that they can understand it. So you're educating people at all times, educating them through examples of what you do and how you do it. You're increasing your interactions with these connectors as well as the leaders. So you're not just working with end users, VTOs, the CEOs. You're working with the connectors, people who are willing to make that connection for you because they can increase their capability of serving more people. And finally, what's real important is to understand that this is a creative process. The world changes, everything changes, the media changes, the process changes. So you need to be creative in how you do what you do, millions of different ways of doing it. Find out what are the best practices people use and use them. And ultimately, have that smile on your face. You ever notice all these pictures that you've seen in my presentation of people with smiles? Enjoy it. Have fun. And with that, I want to thank you for coming to today's program. This is, I said, the 9th of our 10 series. I think rainmaking is a critical role, whether you're working in a small firm or a large firm, whether it's a service, manufacturing, professional practice, it doesn't matter. All of the rules I've just given you will work for you. And so if you have additional questions, feel free to write them down now, and I'll try to respond to them. If you prefer, you can later on just email me. You have my email address, one of them anyhow. And you can email it to us as well. And with that, what I want to do now is I want to take some of your questions.